How's everybody doing? My name's T.S. and I write comics, and I'm here to talk about Hellion and Bash, my brand new comic that is live on Kickstarter right now with issue number 2. And don't worry, you can pick up issue number 1 there as well. It's all about asking the question, who saves the sidekick from the superhero? If you like books like Invincible or The Victories or The Boys, you're going to dig Hellion and Bash. Basically, it's my take on Batman and Robin. But we asked that question on, should the kid be doing this? Should you be putting a sidekick in harm's way? It's being published by Professional Entropy, written by me, drawn by Marcus Pedro, and lettered by Mike Stock. So if any of the words I said sound cool, or if you like that trailer that's playing right now, you can check it out in the link in my bio right now, live on Kickstarter. But also, if you have questions about writing comic books, making comic books, getting them published, anything like that, please stop by, ask questions. I'd love to, answer anything that I can. I was actually just pitching to other publishers this week for a couple of new series, and we can talk about pitch packets all day. Sometimes it's a good time, sometimes it's very, very stressful. I got about an hour to do some of this stuff, so. Ken, how you doing today? I'm also working through my backlog of emails. So if you're waiting on an email to, for me to get back to, I promise I will do it. I just got done pitching a couple of new series, and I was just talking to an artist I'm working with on a brand new series, very Scott Pilgrim coded, and it's really, really fun working with new artists and people that you've never worked with before, because I always learn something from working with, new creators. I try to work with people not only that I want to work with, but with people that I can learn something from, being somewhat new to the industry part. Hey, I'm at work, so I got this on mute. Just needed some of the comics spies. I appreciate that, man. If you can hear this, thank you so much for hanging out. I appreciate you, dude. Let me see if I can message you if you got me on mute. I've been bugging a lot of my other comic book friends, asking if they can read stuff, asking if they got new work going on. Thanks for the rose, dude. You're the best. And I should do a live check-in on the Kickstarter to see how it's going. Let me bring that up right now. Let's see what we're sitting at right now. Because Hellion and Bash is live on Kickstarter. If you don't know, let's check in. We are sitting at $1,418 out of a $3,000 goal, so almost halfway funded. With 14 days left to go, we have 50 backers so far, which is wild. Thank you so much to everybody who's backed it or told anybody to back it or gone and checked it out. It means a ton. I'm seriously so thankful that we've made it this far. Still got a long way to go. Still got to keep plugging it. Still got to get more eyes on it. So if you know anybody who might be interested in comic books, tell a friend, tell a neighbor, tell that weird dude at the comic book shop to go check out Hellion and Bash. And this has come up a couple different times on the streams in the last few days. If you're looking for a comic book writer, I will definitely consider working with you. I love writing. I love checking in on other people's projects. If you need a hand or even just a second pair of eyes, I do that all the time. I have several different pitches in my inbox right now. So I am definitely for hire. If you're looking for a writer, I would love to pitch on your project. I sometimes I think people think that I might not be interested because I'm working on this series or that series or something like that. But I am not so in demand that I don't have any free time to write something new. I am definitely interested. If you're hiring, if you want a writer on your project, I'm here. Let's talk about it. And, go ahead and feel free to share this with anybody who you think might want to hear about new comic books or talk about them. One of the things that I think a lot of people jump into my lives to hear about is just like making indie comics. What does it take to get into them? Like, how does one do that? And I know, like, when I first started making indie comic books, I didn't know how to do it. I had to learn the entire process. I had a script. Now what? What do I do with that? How do I make that into a full comic book? So if you ever have questions on something like that, I'd be happy to help. Because I didn't know anything. I was lucky enough to find a letterer in Kuen Tang. Love her. Great letterer. She had done some work for DC, and I had asked her to help me make a comic book, and she was like, perfect, I'll definitely letter your comic book. Send me the pages. And I was like, what pages? There are no pages. I don't even have an artist yet. And that was my first lesson to learn, is don't hire a letterer until you have a comic book for them to letter. And I learned my lesson there. But after doing that, and after talking to Quinn, and she helped me find an artist, Monica Aldrin, we did a little anthology called Growing Up, and I learned a lot about what it takes to finish a comic book and what goes into it, and self-publishing and finding an avenue to sell it. And even though not a lot of people bought that book, I learned a lot, and I took that lesson into making pitch packets and eventually self-publishing my next book, Tokyo Fire, with the amazing Sky Hawkins. She is my co-creator on there, and she helped me bring this one to life, and I learned even more on that one. So then when I launched Hellion and Bash, we did so well that a publisher picked us up. So it's definitely a learning experience, and I never mind passing on what I have learned so far. And that includes, telling you about all my mistakes so you don't do the same ones. There are a lot of them to make. I made a lot of mistakes on my first few comic books, and I'm sure I'll make a few mistakes on the next ones too. But if you can learn from it, I will gladly save you some time from having to learn those lessons yourself. The other thing that came on, I don't remember who asked me the other day. I was getting asked about, I'm trying to remember what it was. It was salad dressing. So if you ever have questions on salad dressing, I guess I can answer those too. Which is not one that I expected to get, but sometimes people want to know. Bug Boy, how's it going? So when are we gonna chat about Chimera? Also, do I need to log back into Discord? Did you message me back over there? Sorry, I haven't been online in that way. Oh, okay, you did message me back. Sorry about that, dude. Thinking about doing a cyberpunk style story. Definitely do that. I love cyberpunk. I don't know if you've read Tokyo Fire, but I'm a big fan. And I'm glad you're taking some of the stuff that we said to heart, dude. That means a lot. And saving up to fund the comic book is not a bad way to go. And it's a good idea to save up to try to finish that. If you're not trying to find like a collaborator in that way, if you want to hire somebody, like, you can do it. There's definitely artists out there. I don't know what your financial situation looks like, but you could save up a few grand over a few years. You can fund a cool issue. And if you wanted, what you could do is try to, whatever your next thing that you write that you want to try to fund, try to position it as a one-shot, so you don't feel like, oh, I'm leaving the story hanging because I can't fund issue 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. Like, my first comic book that I did was an anthology. It's a single story, and it doesn't bother me that I haven't gone back to it, because I made it to see if I could make a comic book, number one, but also so I could finish that story and let it be. So I would recommend that to you. Like, I know you have some really cool ideas. I've read Chimera. I know you have like several different issues. You have a whole arc there. But starting out with something that's easy to finish, like a one shot, even if it's an anthology or something, like, it's not a bad way to go. Show yourself that you can finish it. And also, as you work on more scripts, don't be afraid to ask to be a part of somebody else's stuff. There's always anthologies popping up that, like, I beg to be in people's stuff all the time. The Cyberpunk story will probably be a one-shot. Ah, there you go. Heck yeah. You get it then. Yeah, I'm just over here yapping for the sake of yapping then. But yeah, that's definitely a good way to aim. And, you know, as you get better at writing those little one-shots, that's when you start asking people, hey, can I write a backup for you? Can I be in this comic? Can I write a short story for this anthology? There's lots of projects to be pitching yourself on. And that'll help as you try to build up that money, you know, to fund a comic book for yourself. Even taking little tiny gigs, as long as you can save. It's a really cool feeling when you can start funding stuff off your writing. Even if you're not paying all the bills, even if, you know, you're not like being able to go buy yourself a steak dinner, the fact that you can pay for some of your stuff with your writing is really, really cool. Right now I'm working on getting more pages over to the letterer for issue number 2, so it can be done by the time the Kickstarter wraps up. And I just had to turn in the next script for a couple other series, and I was just pitching myself to a few other, like, smaller publishers this morning, like, just looking for gigs. Like, hey, do you got anything that I could write for you? Are you looking for anything? Here's my portfolio. You, Danny Strider, and Lucky 33 have been amazing help. I'm happy to help, and those guys are awesome. And I really appreciate that you listen to us when we have something to say, because, like, we're not experts in everything, but what we do know, we do know. You know what I mean? Like, I will gladly help you when it comes to writing and getting started, especially. We all know how to get started because that's where we're at. You know, I can't tell you how to break in and start working for Marvel Comics. I have no idea. If I knew, I'd be doing it. But I can tell you how to get an indie comic book made. That's something I do view as having some authority on. And if you ever have questions along those lines, dude, please do not hesitate to ask. I would gladly help. And we can still keep talking about Chimera, too, in the background while you work on stuff. Even if that doesn't become, like, the main priority right now. Still happy to help talk about that one. And, you know, whatever you do with your Cyberpunk story, which I'm excited to see your take on it. I always love seeing different Cyberpunk takes because no one quite does it the same way. And I always enjoy, like, what everyone's idea ends up being of, like, what is this dystopia? What would happen if, you know, if we fast forward a few years? Everyone has just a slightly different idea. Aw, thank you so much for the gift, dude. Is that a dinosaur? Thank you. This is my old eyes trying to zoom in on my chat bot. But thank you, man. I'm trying to send these emails to my letterer to make sure that he has stuff to work on right now. That's what I'm saying, Kent. All right. hope everybody else is doing okay today. It's freezing where I'm at. I'm in Michigan, and it was so warm the last few days. It was raining. I was like, oh man, is the weather finally breaking? Is it time? And then, of course, it was like negative something this morning. Everything's frozen because it rained yesterday. Everything is icy and slick. Bugboy says, working on finishing issue 4, then I'm researching cyberpunk themes. Heck yeah, let me know if you need recommendations. I'm a really big fan of the cyberpunk world, like the TTRPG world. Cyberpunk 2077 is awesome. I love Edge Runners. I love that series. Transmetropolitan has a lot of baggage. If you're going to read something like that, I still think it's a good piece of artwork. But when it comes to the creators, there's a lot of questionable stuff in there that might be something you don't want to put money towards. But there's so many other good cyberpunk pieces. That doesn't get talked about a lot as cyberpunk because there's lots of other stuff going on there is The Matrix. Maybe it's because I'm a 90s kid, but I always appreciate looking at that. Shadowrun is another one. I again, because it's like fantasy based and it ties into other TTRPG stuff like D&D, it kind of gets overlooked, but some of the best cyberpunk themes, I think, come from Shadowrun. I love that book. Then you can go to classics too. You can look at Neuromancer or something like that, which is a little bit cheesy if you go back to it nowadays. I definitely appreciate it. Steven, what's going on, dude? Did you get my email? I think also Professional Entropy sent you an email too. But yeah, when it comes to cyberpunk stuff, can't go wrong. Also, you can check out Tokyo Fire. Like, I got some cyberpunk stuff in there. All right, no worries, dude. I know I had asked them to reach out to you about doing some posts for Hellion and Bash if you're still interested. And I think that they started reaching out to people this week. I talked to Kim, and then Yusuf got one going, so worth checking. It is, again, one of those really weird things as you start to do more comic book stuff for other companies, so much more of your job becomes playing like email tag and like being in meetings about stuff. And like sometimes it's a little frustrating. That's like why I left my corporate job, is I didn't like it. It's worth it to do here because it lets me make more of the comic books, which is my main thing that I enjoy. But sometimes I would rather be writing the comic books than having to play email tag and message people and go back and forth. I've had a spin-off idea for Chimera called Vigilante Corps. Yeah, you've mentioned Vigilante Corps before. That's something too. Not that like you necessarily line up with that, but when I think of early cyberpunk stuff that influenced me, a lot of the futuristic stuff you see in TMNT really hit some of the cyberpunk stuff heavily, and that's definitely influenced some of my ideas in Tokyo Fire and some of the cyberpunk stuff I've written. And a lot of mech anime. The 90s really did push cyberpunk pretty heavily. What is the spinoff about, Bug Boy? I know you've mentioned Vigilante Corps before, but I don't know what like the main pitch is. I'll have to tell you what I have so far in Discord or something. Sounds good, dude. I don't know which one I sent it to. I can reach out to Professional Entropy Steven, see if they can send you another email. I don't know what email they had. It was just the one that you had given me. Good day, Nightfall. How's it going? I don't know if you saw Nightfall. I responded to your DM. And feel free to hit me up about whatever stuff you had in mind. I'm always down to talk comic books with people. You never did tell me though. Like, are you a writer? Are you an artist? Do you just want to get involved in working on comics in general? What angle do you work from when it comes to comic books? And let me check, Steven. Let me see which side to do. Oh heck yeah, Nightfall. When I hop off the stream, I'll go and check, and I'll DM you too. I have a hard out at 2:30. I gotta go pick up my kids from school. Those kids always doing stuff, always eating food. I gotta feed them, and going to school, coming back from school. But thank you so much for reaching out, for real. I really appreciate that. It's like, honestly, it's a little bit of like an ego thing, but maybe it's just like as like a little sensitive kid. I'm like, oh, someone thought of me. Like, I've had people like message me stuff, like mean stuff, and I'm like, no, they thought about messaging me. That's nice. My wife gives me crap sometimes because I don't get mean. Like if a troll pops in for anything, I just I tell them I hope they have a good day or whatever. And she's always like, don't you want to say something mean back to them or something? I'm like, no. Like, I think sometimes I don't mind being like a lightning rod for that stuff, but also it's just flattering that somebody wants to say something to me sometimes. Like I just sit here in this dark room and I write comic books all day. So being able to interact with anybody is a treat. See potential in your comics and company in general, and I'd love to be a part of that potential, Well, that's awesome, dude. Thank you a lot. Like, I've had to kind of open myself up to stuff like that because like that's how I've gotten all my publishing deals, is people reaching out like that. And I think I was really, really too cynical when I first started. When people wanted to hear about my comic book, I always felt like I was bothering them. And because I know sometimes I am bothering people when I pitch my comic book. Hellion and Bash #2. It's live on Kickstarter right now. Go to the link in my bio. But you kind of have to be okay with bothering people. That's a part of the job. And sometimes you end up not bothering people. Sometimes people do want to hear about your stuff or do want to work with you. And I've had to come around to that. Oh, awesome. You found it, Steven. Thank you. I was going to say, I found it. It's the 56 one is the one that they hit up. If you ever want me to write something for you, I will do my best. I appreciate that, Bug Boy. Right now, I'm not in the position to ask people to write for me because I barely, have enough stuff that I can, write and get made. But I'll definitely keep you in mind as I work towards, more notoriety and more opportunities. And the other thing that might happen eventually is hopefully, I get enough jobs that I have to say no to some. And that's when I can point towards other people I know who write comic books. Sadly, I'm not there yet. Like, I'm still asking people to let me write stuff. But that's definitely something I would totally consider. I'm not big enough yet to have those opportunities to give anybody a gig. I'm still trying to... Sometimes I have to create my own gigs for myself still. But I don't gatekeep them. if I'm not right for something, I'll definitely pass it along. You'll get there. I hope so. That's the hope. I think partly is like that cynicism in me is I don't expect it. I don't assume it's going to happen. I, prepare for the worst, hope for the best, and the best I can do is try. That's why I ask probably for gigs that I don't... that I'm not ready for, or that I haven't paid my dues for yet, but I always ask. The worst that can happen is they say no. I reach out to pros all the time, doing the exact same thing that you just did. Like, hey, do you ever need something written for you? Can I pitch you a project? Do you want to read what I have going on? I get a lot of really polite no's. Do you do your art as well for your comic book? No, not any of the two that are out right now, like Hellion and Bash. #1 and #2 are drawn by Marcus Pedro, an amazing artist out of Brazil. His stuff is killer. Like, I cannot wait to see him work on bigger stuff than Hellion and Bash, but he's doing awesome on Hellion and Bash so far. But he draws that one, and then my co-creator Sky Hawkins, she draws Tokyo Fire, and is the co-creator with me, helped me write some of the stuff. I'm just a writer for the most part. I did just land a gig I can't talk about yet. I'm doing a graphic novel, and I am drawing that one. I do a lot of cover work for stuff. I think I got a cover right over here. I don't know if you'll be able to see it. Like I did a variant cover for Tokyo Fire, but I do a lot of cover work for indie stuff, and I'm just recently starting to do interior artwork, and I'm drawing that graphic novel. But I try to hire artists just because they're better than me, and I prefer to work with artists. I'm more of a writer. Sam Gudelin is the artist and co-creator on The Digger, which is the series I'm doing for Invader comic books. But yeah, usually I don't draw my own stuff. I'm starting to get there as I practice more. But no, mostly just a writer. Just a dude who writes a lot of stories. I appreciate you, Steven. Thank you so much for looking into it. I hope it all works out. That kind of thing is kind of like little above my pay grade when it comes to professional entropy. I just, write the stories and hand it off to them. Are your comics also published locally, like in local stores? Yeah, they're in a couple local stores. They're in some stores nationally. Like I have comics in other shops and whatnot. One of the things about working with publishers is they helped me get distribution. So we've been talking to shops. I just sold an order of comic books to a few shops out of Chicago. But they're all over the place now. And if you ever are in a shop and you want to see me there and I'm not there yet, ask for The Digger from Invader Comics. Ask for Hellion and Bash from Professional Entropy. Tokyo Fire from Professional Entropy. I'm down to work with shops, and especially as Diamond kind of, fell out. Some of these smaller publishers don't have distribution in the same way. A lot of local shops are willing to work with indie guys. So I'm always down to work with new stores. But yeah, they're local. They're all over the place. Benny, how's it going? I'm also on like every digital storefront that I can be, and will continue to be as these comic books come out. Yeah, thanks for these lives. That'll keep me sane while working, bro. Happy to do it, dude. They're partly to keep me sane. It's to keep this fresh and to me like talking to people and used to it. Obviously, got to shill Hellion and Bash #2 while it's on Kickstarter. And again, and part of it keeps me sane too. I get to talk to people because I'm just in my dungeon writing comic books all day. You know what I mean? Or answering emails, more likely. Are they also in Europe? Because I'm European, and the only comics I find in my shops are from DC and Marvel. I'm not anywhere in Europe yet, but I would love to talk to you about that. I've been trying to. There's a kind of like similar to Zoop. It's like a Kickstarter that's just for comic books. And they help you get translations done. And I've been trying to work with them to get my stuff overseas. I have some friends in the UK, and I have a lot of friends in Italy. And a lot of like Eastern European countries like Belarus, Russia. I have stuff on that side of the world, Germany, but I don't have distribution there yet. So I don't have a way to get my comic books in shops over there yet. But I'm trying. If you know somebody. Look forward to my character cameo. Oh, Benny! Oh man! Speaking of your character cameo, that page is done. Well, it's inked. I'll send it to you later. It was really exciting to see. Your cameo is done. Most of the cameos are done. I tried to front load them in the book, but like there's a cameo from Mr. Midlife Crisis. John Avina is in there. Colonel Jefferson from Irrepressible Comics is in there, and a bunch of other ones. But I just got all the cameo pages yesterday. I'm literally sending them off to be lettered right now. That's what I'm supposed to be doing, sitting at my computer, but I went live instead. But I would definitely love to do that. I might know a guy over here in Europe that could help publish stuff there. Not 100% sure, though. Hey, man, listen, that's more than I know. I would definitely love to talk about it and to hear about it. Even if they say, no, what are you doing? I'd still love to get to know more connections over there. One of the things for me growing up was I loved Italian and French comic books, and that because I couldn't get my hands on a lot of Marvel DC stuff when I was a kid. So, and getting comic books from really weird places like garage sales. I had a couple of neighbors who are from foreign countries, and I got some really cool comics as a kid that you wouldn't have seen otherwise. Like, I think I was the only kid excited at my high school when the Dylan Dog movie was coming out. Because they're like, who the heck is Dylan Dog? So, like, I love European comics, and there's so many different sensibilities from their stories, but I would definitely love to talk about anything like that. Like I said, even if it doesn't work out, it's okay. I won't be offended. But I'm super excited to do that. Yeah, Benny, I'll send you an email when I hop off live. I gotta go pick up my kids, but I can send them to you through the phone, and I'll share some of those pages that are about to get lettered, because it was really exciting. Because when I send over the cameo stuff, I'm really clear. I'm like, hey, this person paid to be in the comic book. Let's make sure they get a moment in it. You know, like something that's happening, or whatever they asked to be doing. Try to like make sure that's happening. Like, Zach Harvey asked to be like a superhero in there who's just drinking coffee, kind of oblivious. So like we have a scene where there's a lot of superheroes, so it's just he's just there chilling. But like your character got to do a really fun thing. I was really excited about. When Mr. Midlife Crisis and John Avina asked to be in the book, they specifically were like, "Hey, we don't want to be superheroes. We want to be us, but we want like to be being saved. Like we want to be in the chaos." So that stuff's always really fun to write, and I work with Marcus really closely to make sure that if you paid for a moment in the book, like you get to be there. I don't let it like overshadow the story, and it's hard. I try to make sure it fits into the stuff that's going on, but I don't want anyone to have to like squint to see their character that they paid to be in the book for. You know, I don't want it to be a blink and you miss it. I want you to have a moment in there, at least in a way that's going to be noticeable. Because like that's the point of wanting to see your character in there. Like I don't want to like have to have a magnifying glass. Like where's Waldo? Like what's the fun in that? I'll pay if I get a cameo. Bug Boy, go check out the Kickstarter. It's an add-on right now if you want to do that. I think it's on the $75 like mark. Is what the publisher put it as, but I'm definitely open to cameos on issue 3. I didn't think I was going to, but me and Marcus had a lot of fun putting them into issue 2, so we wanted to make sure it was available on issue 3. No hard feelings if you don't, but if you're interested, definitely go check it out. You know, it can be an original character. It can be, you know, like an OC in there. It can just be you if you just want to be in the book. We had a mix of everything. I had a couple people that reached out who wanted to be like canonized into the book. So like that was something that we had to work out because I really liked their characters. I wanted to write more for them. So like I had to figure out something there. But yeah, I thought I wasn't going to like the cameos. I was a little bit annoyed at first when I was going to offer them, and I had a lot of fun trying to make them fit into the book. So definitely open to doing them. We'll probably continue doing them while I can. Are you already making a profit off your comics? I've seen your name being thrown around by mutuals. Oh, that's really cool. Wow. I don't know, people are talking about me. Are they saying good things? Profit? I wouldn't say, not a big profit, if anything. Basically, my goal in most of the comic book companies that I get a chance to work with, it's a break-even model. We're trying to make enough to make the next book. For Professional Entropy, I don't get paid very much to do it, but what they do is they allow me to pay Marcus, the artist, they allow me to pay Mike, the letterer, and they pay for it to get printed, so we're all breaking even. And like when I run the Kickstarter for it, it's just enough money basically to make sure that we can make the next issue. So I'm not making a big profit of it. Sometimes I get a nice check, and that's cool. A lot of the comics, the way that it works, it's kind of slow to make money. So even if Hellion and Bash issue 2 starts making money, I won't see a check from it for quite a while because it's got to get in the stores, they got to recoup their money, you know, the publisher, and then I start to get a check. For Tokyo Fire, we only hit the break-even number after like 300 some issues, but once we finally did, like now every copy of Tokyo Fire that sells, me and Sky Hawkins get, you know, a very small portion of it, but we get paid. So yeah, like some of my comics do make money. They at least make money for the people involved. You know, not paying all my bills with it. I got to do a lot of other stuff to do that. Also, who's talking about me? I gotta know. I can't now, but in the future, I'd like to have Valentine have a cameo. Oh, for sure, man. No worries. But also, don't forget, save that money for your comic book. I mean, not to talk you out of giving me money, which is probably a terrible, terrible business call. But, you know, I know that you're excited to be working on your own comic book and you're saving up to hire an artist. So don't feel the pressure to spend it on me, you know? Yeah, all I heard was positive things. That's good. That's good. I'm glad. I'll support you one day. I appreciate that, man. And I try to put like really lower tiers in there. I don't charge more than $5 for any comic book. I think the tiers start at $5 for digital, but even if you get the physical copy, that includes the digital and the physical copy. All of my add-ons, for the most part, for the books are $5. I've been able, you know, I have the privilege to work with a publisher, which means I can keep a lot of my costs lower. So like I don't have to charge $10 for one of my indie comic books. I can charge $5, so it's the same as like a Marvel book or something on the shelf. So I charge $5 for it. I probably could charge a little bit more. Maybe I would be funded already. But then it would feel like you're making an exception for my book because you're not going to pay $10 for the new issue of Spider-Man. And I try to keep all of my stuff in the way to go, this is a comic book. It's not an indie comic book. It's just a smaller comic. My mutual Kimse made a video about your comic. Oh, that's cool. Kim's awesome. I've had the chance to be on her podcast with, like the Geek Speak with Steven Reacts and Comic Talk. Love those dudes. Love Kim. They're all very, very awesome. And one of their blurbs actually is going to be on the trade on the box, because when I gave them the comic book, they were being kind of nice. They were like, yeah, we'll check it out or whatever. And when I came on, when they all finally read it, they were like, actually, this is really good. And the biggest compliment, that came from Kim, because she mostly only reads Marvel and DC. She hadn't read a lot of indie stuff, like even like creator owned, even Image style. And she thought it was like an Image comic, which was like the biggest, compliment you could get as an indie guy, is like that you thought this big publisher published it. And that's kind of what I aim for. I try to aim to surprise people with it, but if I'm busy and you're not busy tomorrow, we could talk about Chimera. What time, Bug Boy? I'm Eastern Standard Time. Tomorrow is Saturday, so like my kids are off and stuff, but I can definitely try to set some time aside. See, tonight I'm on a podcast at like 9:30, and I gotta pick up my kids from school, and then I have a few pages I gotta write tonight. After all that stuff, and gotta leave room for laundry, but I can probably set aside an hour or so to kind of go over stuff. If you want to talk about Chimera or your other book that you were talking about doing, I can definitely do that. I can make something happen. Like I said, I'm EST though, so maybe like noon, 1 o'clock ish, somewhere early afternoon. I can definitely make that happen. As long as my wife says it's cool, because she's off tomorrow, and I don't want to saddle her with the kids. And if she wants to hang out, I'll definitely contact you on Discord. You got it. Can do. How long have I been married for? I've been married for 12 years. Yeah, it's 2025. Yeah. I met my wife in college when we were 18 going on 19. We got engaged just after a few months of dating, and we've been together ever since. And it's the best thing that ever happened to me. I love my wife. She's my best friend. She's also a giant comic book fan. She's the reason why I make comic books. I had a terrible job that I hated. And when she graduated college, she was like, hey, it's your turn. You took care of us for a decade and more. Quit your job. I can support us for a little while. Go make comic books. But she's the best. And way out of my league. She's gorgeous. She's smart. I don't know why she likes hanging out with me. She's also the reason why I have a beard and long hair. Because I don't really care about my appearance. But she's attracted to cavemen. So I've had people going like, you should shave for your wife or work out or do whatever. And I'm like, she has cultivated her perfect man. She loves comic books. She loves the way I look. I promise this has all been her chess. She's moved all the pieces and maneuvered them to have the life that she wants. But yeah, I've been married for a long time, and we've been together for even longer. And it was really cool meeting her so young, because I've had the chance to be with her. Not a lot of people can say they met their person that young, and you don't have issues or anything like that. And I'm extremely lucky, and I recognize that, being able to be with her so young, and we get to spend the rest of our lives together. I was a dad at 23, which was a little bit rough, financially wise, but I had a really old dad. My dad was almost 40 when he had me. So by the time I was older and I needed more attention, he had got a bad back and couldn't really hang out kind of thing. And he was just done doing stuff. I'm 32 now, and my oldest is 8 years old going on 9. And it's I have all the energy. We can do all the things. She draws comic books with me and writes comics, and me and my son play video games together. And I'm a nerdy dude, so me and him play Digimon cards and Fortnite and stuff. And my family is the best. I love that. I'm happy for you too. It's quite rare to find a relationship like that. Dude, it so is. And I never take it for granted. And I have friends who are still single in their 30s, and I feel so bad every time they tell me about like a Hinge date or whatever that went sideways. I'm like, that sucks. I could not imagine. I've never dated really as an adult. I met my wife, when I was barely an adult. We were 18, 19, and we've been together ever since. I am so awkward. I can't imagine having to meet somebody now. Just wouldn't happen. And also, like, I'm so weird. I write comic books for a living. Like, my favorite thing to do is to play JRPGs and read comic books with my family. I couldn't go on a date. I don't think I would. Before I met my wife, the only thing I cared about was comic books and Magic the Gathering. Like that, I did that every Wednesday. I went to a comic book shop and played Magic the Gathering for like 4 hours, ate 50 chicken wings from Pizza Hut, and that was my life. That was what I looked forward to every week. And then eventually they started doing Magic the Gathering twice a week. So we had Wednesday night Magic was standard, Friday night Magic was drafts, and I would do both of those, and that was going to be my life until I keeled over, and then I happened to have to go to college, and met my wife the first day. She didn't agree to go out with me for several months, but that's a different story. I keep getting halfway through the message I need to send to my letterer. That's why if you see me checking stuff, I'm like, oh, I have emails I need to send. And if anybody hasn't yet, or if you want to share it out to other people, please share out Hellion and Bash #2's campaign for Kickstarter, even if you already backed it or whatever. We're about halfway funded. I'm trying not to get nervous. Everybody goes through a lull in their campaign or whatever, but I got to keep pushing it. I got to keep selling copies. I got to get more people interested. I'm on a podcast tonight. I'm doing more podcasts next week, but I hate to have to keep shilling it every day. I have to until the campaign's done. Are there any characters that you've written that you put some personal, relatable stuff into? All of them, every single character. I mean, that's a big part. Like, not to get like too personal with Hellion and Bash, but a big part of it being a kid who like needs somebody else to step up and save them. That's a lot of my own life. That's a lot of my father's life. There's a lot of personal stuff in there when it comes to that, because the system not just failed me. Like, I was an emancipated minor. I lived in a van for a long time as a kid. That's where like Tokyo Fire, the two main characters over there, Tib and Ren, they're street kids, right? They live on the street. Their like parental relationships are like just older kids that took care of them and stuff like that. That's a lot of my story. I try to put that personal stuff in there a lot. And then with like Hellion and Bash, with it being a sidekick, and he finds this unlikely mentor and this super thief, that's a lot of me too. Like a lot of found family stuff with me. My wife's adopted, and my in-laws are some of the closest people in my life. So I use a lot of that stuff in there. Sometimes too much. I'm writing a series right now. It's a little bit closer to Scott Pilgrim, about like a teenager, and he goes on this wild adventure with ninjas in New England. And a lot of that story is like just directly like from my life. A little reminder, we're all special, loved, and we all deserve every ounce of joy in this world. Thank you so much, Ashwater. Like that. Thank you so much. That means a ton. Thank you for the heart too. And I agree. I agree. We do all deserve love, and like that's a big part of what I put into Hellion and Bash. Is you see all these people who are like afraid to do something to save this kid, and the people who do step up are the ones that aren't obligated to. Like, not in a way. They just like they need to help this kid because that's what you're supposed to do. Whereas in like the system is kind of let them go by the wayside, and they don't have the love that they need. That's good. It's always better when a writer writes something personal in their characters. I can't help to do it. It's a big part of me being a writer in my 30s versus when I was, in my 20s doing stuff. I don't think I could write the same way. I don't think my stories would be nearly as good. I hadn't lived enough, and I hadn't had done enough to put personal experiences into my stories. I'm a freestyle artist pushing peace, love, and positivity even at my lowest. That's awesome, Ashwater Music. That's really good. Go check out that stuff. Where can we, oh, they're gone. I was going to say, ask where we can check out their music. But I always appreciate the drive-by positivity. Like, that's always awesome, Me and my friends, when we were, stupid punk kids living in vans and, like, rundown houses, our favorite game to do would be drive-by compliments. You know, like so many of our peers were doing punk stuff like graffiti, and we would just drive by and just tell somebody that we hope they're having a nice day. You look really nice today. That was a lot of fun. All right, I gotta send this email. I keep getting distracted. Let's just knock this out real quick. And if anybody has any questions about Hellion and Bash, feel free to ask it. Thank you so much to Nightfall for asking some really awesome questions, letting me yap. I appreciate you. And I will always answer anything to the best of my abilities. And I'm kind of an open book. I don't talk a lot about my kids because that's for them. They're too young to be on the internet, so I don't speak for them, and I don't want to dox my family or anything like that. But for me, like, I'm not embarrassed to talk about anything. I was in a business meeting the other day for Tokyo Fire, and the idea of the book kind of came, like, where did it come from? I was just telling stories about me and my buddies living in a van. We rented a really rundown house in high school. It's like we all lived on our own. And like the house was so run down, when you would flush the toilet, the lights would flicker. And I was like, what's that about? Like, that can't be good. But like, it was what it was. And so many of my stories come out like that, and I see people like, oh, like worried for me. I'm like, I survived. I made it. I don't mind telling these stories. I hope other people don't have to deal with that stuff when they're younger. But like, it's not all bad. And I have some really interesting stories that came out of it, and I don't mind telling them. All right. Almost there. It's only taken me a half an hour to send this email. See, and this is why sometimes it's so slow to make comic books. You got to go live. Are there any video games you're into? I love video games, JRPGs especially. Love JRPGs. Um, Probably my favorite game type. I also love fighting games, and anything martial arts related to, like Sifu is one of my favorite games of all time. I like an eclectic mix of stuff, but any JRPG I'm going to buy and check out. I'm in the middle of playing Metaphor ReFantazio. Love that game. Love all of the stuff that Atlas makes. I just replayed Celeste because that game's awesome. All of the like Sony third-person over-the-shoulder action games like God of War, Uncharted, Last of Us. Love all of those. I'm a big gamer. I used to write for a few like really small video game sites and did some like critic stuff in the like mid 2000s. But yeah, love video games. My wife's also a big gamer. We play a lot of Fortnite in my house because my kids are into that. I play Marvel Rivals. Of all of the games that I can try to make time for, I play Marvel Rivals with some of my IRL friends. Love Marvel Rivals right now. We were big Overwatch guys, kind of fell off, and Marvel Rivals is the perfect like return to form for that hero shooter type. Having a blast playing that. Also having a blast with Metaphor. Just haven't had all the time to actually like dump into it like I want to. It's just not always enough time. What's everybody else playing? What are you guys into these days? It's great to see superhero games make great co-op games now. With Marvel Rivals. Exactly. That's the thing. Like, I love playing it. My son loves watching me play it. He plays it a little bit on his own, too. The Spider-Man games from Sony have been awesome. And my wife is a great, like, co-op partner. Like, she watches me play a lot of stuff if it's not a multiplayer game. We play horror games together because we're both big chickens. So, like, we're working our way through all the Resident Evil games, Alan Wake, stuff like that. Didn't have much hope for co-op superhero games after Gotham Knights, Avengers. You know what? I had some fun with those games. Like, I don't think that they super delivered, but I had some fun with Gotham Knights. I had a lot of fun with the Avengers. Like, just holding the controller and playing some of those characters were the best that they felt. Like, I think Iron Man felt really good. Captain America, like throwing the shield in that game and bouncing it off different enemies, felt really, really fun. But overall, it's like they just tried to pack too many things into that game, so it didn't quite deliver. But I had a good time at the time, you know? And sadly, it's a little bit like superhero movies for a long time. It's like we didn't have a lot of great games. You know, there was only so many, so you kind of took what you could get when it comes to it. But, you know, if it wasn't like Rocksteady, if it wasn't a Spider-Man game, you know, if it wasn't Batman or Spider-Man, you didn't get a lot of good ones. So when they announced an Avengers game, and it was fine, I still played it. And I had some good times with it. Again, Captain America felt dope. I preferred the Captain America in that game over the Captain America in Rivals. Still have fun playing as him. Just that shield, I don't think will be matched for a really long time. I bought a PC not too long ago, so it's given me an excuse to replay Sonic games I used to play. Overall, I love all kinds of games. Heck yeah, dude, that's awesome. I've been replaying because my son really likes Sonic, especially after the movies, and I have a treasure trove of Sonic games from over the years. So I was getting him into some of the classics, and then we did Sonic Colors and Generations, and I bought him Frontier for his birthday last year. And we've been having a blast going back and forth on that one. Because, you know, it's really sandboxy. It's not a great game. There's a lot of pop-in. There's definitely issues. But it's still really cool to explore an open world with him like Sonic. And it got him to check out Legend of Zelda, because Breath of the Wild. So him, you know, kind of moving over from Sonic to Breath of the Wild has been really cool to see. Because mostly what he likes is Animal Crossing and Pokemon. He'll play 1,000 hours of Pokemon. But I love Sonic, and he does too, and he's kind of come back around. He took a break from it, but I think he's excited enough now. He had just bought the first volume of the IDW series, so I'm seeing it like if he starts to become like a Sonic guy in that way. You should get him Shadow Generations. It's like Sonic Frontiers, but more polished. I've heard that, and I really liked Generations, and I loved all the Shadow content that they were going to drop for that. And I might do that. His birthday's in May, but if we need something in between for him to check out. But he's been on like a little bit of a comic book kick. He reads comics all the time, but he's been really like, of all the stuff he wants to do, he wants to play Pokemon and read Dogman and Captain Underpants. So even if I got him a Sonic game right now, I don't think he would check it out because he's just so excited for more Dogman stuff and Captain Underpants. We just watched the movie the other day. We rented it, and he had a really good time with that. So. And I try to be that dad where it's like I don't push too many things. It's like if they're excited about it, I try to lean into it. So when he's starting to get excited for Sonic again, we might beat Frontiers because we never beat that one. And if he still wants more, I'll pick up Shadow Generations because he's already played the original Generations game. And they just put Colors on PS Plus too. If he's into racers, you should get Sonic Racing Cross Worlds because it's coming out in a few months. That I definitely will check that one out. I tried to get him into one of the Sonic racers I had from like the 360 era, and he wasn't really into it. We tried Crash Team Racing, which broke my heart that he didn't like that one. But we all love Mario Kart. We play a crap ton of Mario Kart in my house, like almost always. If we're gonna play a family game, it's Mario Kart. 6 Gals, what's going on, dude? I owe you a reply on Discord. I gotta check that out. I promise I will. But I had to go make the donuts, as they say. No, no worries. I appreciate that, man. I am. I tried to, like, I used to play it down where it's like, no, I have plenty of time, we'll do it. And like, I fell behind. I had to be honest with people. I'm like, listen, I am so behind on stuff. I promise I will always get to it. Like, I'm not so busy or backed up that I won't read stuff. Like, I will never big time you, but I will be honest and say that sometimes it takes me longer to read stuff. Most people are pretty understanding. I've had a few people get mad at me, and I'm always really sorry. Like, I'm not doing it on purpose. It's never my intention to bother you and not get stuff read on time. Because, like, I think there's a little bit of, like, imposter syndrome for me, where it's like, of course I'm going to read everyone's stuff, because until I'm working at, like, Marvel or DC or whatever, I'm in the same boat as the rest of you. Like, I just happen to do more when it comes to, like, self-publishing stuff or working with small publishers, but it's never a better than type situation. How long have you been working on comics? Professionally, probably about like 3 years. But I started writing comic books, what year? In like 2019, 2020, like mid-pandemic is when I had published my first one. I wrote professionally before that. I was a technical writer. So like I had done that. I had gone to college for writing and accounting. It was a weird double major. And I had always done creative stuff on the side. I always did D&D stuff, but like professionally comic books just for a few years now. In 2022, right around there is when I quit my desk job to start making comic books full time. And I have to remind myself that it hasn't been that long of doing this, because sometimes I get down where I'm like, is this taking too long? Am I not cut out for this kind of thing? Should I have already made it by now? But really not that long in the grand scheme of things. I was a technical writer for a decade. Come work for me when I make it big. Always, dude. I'm always honest. I'm a little bit of a tool. If you're going to pay me, I'm going to write for you. That'll definitely happen. Like, I take some work for friends, or we trade stuff, and I have to be honest sometimes and be like, listen, I will totally write your thing. It's going to take me a little bit longer because I got to do the paying gigs first. And because, I got to pay the bills, got to make the donuts first. But I will always happily write for you, dude. What writer made you want to become a comic book writer yourself? I always like joke about this because there are writers that have influenced me for sure, but just as many bad comic books inspired me to make stuff, so I won't say those names, but big ones that I found really inspirational, I learned a lot from. Michael Avon Oeming on The Victories specifically showed me what you could do with a superhero comic, along with Robert Kirkman on Invincible, Walking Dead, all the amazing stuff that he did at Marvel. I loved Robert Kirkman's stuff, so Oeming, Kirkman, Matt Fraction, and Kelly Sue DeConnick both, but Matt Fraction, his run on Iron Fist was a big game changer for me. I also loved what he did on Hawkeye. Kelly Sue DeConnick across the board. I can't list all of them. There's a million of them. J. Michael Straczynski, but so many of those really got me into it. Scotty Young is another big one. I love everything that Scotty Young does, and I will always. And then there's a lot of mainstays that everyone will say: Jeff Lemire, James Tynion, Scott Snyder. There's not just one, basically. I'll call people out for being bad writers. Listen, it's all objective. I mean, it's all subjective, right? Like, art is subjective. One person's favorite thing is going to be someone's least favorite thing. I won't call out someone for like me not liking them because they're a peer of mine, even if they don't know it. I work in the same industry. I will call out some people for like bigotry, all of that stuff. I don't stand by. I won't, be quiet about that. I hate that. But I will never say, oh, I hated this book or whatever. And I also try to learn from books even when I don't like them. There's stuff that I can take from it and grow from. Ernest Cline's Ready Player One, Pete, great, fantastic. I loved Ready Player One. Ernest Cline's Armada, oh my god, my stuff is so much better. I don't know. I don't want to compare the two. I've only read a few things of yours, and I will say I did not enjoy Armada. I also didn't love the Ready Player 2 stuff. But Ready Player One, I very much enjoyed that book. Todd McFarlane, Kirkman, and Ian Flynn really made me think that I don't need to be a part of a big company to make great comics. That's totally true. But let's be fair, especially when it comes to McFarlane and Kirkman, they didn't start middle of nowhere. Like, I guess, they did. Everyone's did indie comics and stuff. Kirkman did, Battle Pope before anything. But it's not like they grew their stuff out of nowhere. They got ins at those other companies, then carried them over, right? Like, Image wouldn't have happened if McFarlane hadn't been doing stuff for Spider-Man for a long time, right? Kirkman kind of started out of nowhere, and then that's where the Kirkman Manifesto comes from. He then left and started doing stuff over at Marvel, and then went back to creator-owned, right? So, like, it's not like they can do, something out of nothing. Everybody needs to kind of build up somewhere with some notoriety. Of a big company to make great comics. That's true. Fair enough. Yeah, I appreciate that. But like, you got to find somewhere to give you a chance. And that's why I always say, I'm like, I'll work with most companies, and I want to build my resume. I want to do that Kirkman Manifesto. I want to work with these smaller publishers and self-published stuff, but I also really want to work with Marvel and DC and build up a fan base and play with their toys a little bit, and then carry that over to creator-owned stuff, whether I'm working on other people's, IP over there, or if I get a chance to create more of my own. I love writing in general, and I'll write across the board. I have such a good time creating comic books, and I don't want to limit myself. I don't want my comics to be the next Marvel. I want to work with Marvel. I want to work with DC. I want to write stuff for Boom and IDW, and I want to create some series over at Image Comics and Dark Horse and everywhere in between. I love comic books, and that's every single part of the industry, right? And I want to be a part of that. I'd love to work with Marvel and DC, but I probably won't make my own characters for them. I have friends is a strong word. I have some mutuals that have worked for Marvel and DC, and while they won't always come with the largest paychecks, I know that it's been rewarding, and it's definitely helped their career overall to do that stuff. I know when it comes to creating characters, that's a better deal over at DC, because they've done a lot of work over there to make sure you're getting royalties for that, versus Marvel. But if I ever got the chance, I would definitely still do it. I would do any of that stuff, because it will help your career in the long run to do that. If you can get over there and create a new character that everybody loves, you're gonna have a better chance of having your own creator-owned series and do something for Image or Boom or whatever. So I would definitely do something like that. But I always joke, right? Like, if I ever got the chance, it's not like they're gonna let me write Spider-Man. I might get a one-page backup for a character that nobody has heard of. So I always say, like, I will do Gold Balls. You're gonna see Gold Balls from me before you see Spider-Man. You're gonna see me doing a Dog Welder backup before you ever see me do Batman. T.S. will lower himself to any of them. I don't think it's lower. I love so much of the stuff that Marvel and DC put out. Currently, before, in the future, but I will definitely, I'll write anything that they let me, but never ever get it wrong. I forgot about Dog Welder. Never forget about Dog Welder. Dog Welder is one of my favorite things to pitch at parties. When people are like, what would you write for DC if you had the chance? And it's like, well, let me give you my Dog Welder pitch, because that's the one, like, if I ever got in the room, they're not going to let me write Batman. They might let me write Dog Welder. They'd be the ones who need him. Listen, I appreciate that. They don't need me. They have so much talent at those places. DC track record currently has been, and it's all subjective. You got to remember that. Some people really, really love what they're putting out right now. World's Finest is probably my favorite book being made right now. I love everything from the Absolute Universe. I loved everything that they did with the Alan Scott stuff recently. I'll read anything that Tom King puts his mind to. I don't absolutely love his current Black Canary run, but I think that's partly just I don't love UFC stuff, and that's a big part of that storyline. But I love Black Canary. She's one of my favorite characters of all time, so I'm gonna read it every time it comes out. The best thing about Dog Welder is it's a legacy hero. It is, right? That's the best thing. That's the thing I always tell my wife is, like, you have this joke character, and I always think of when Constantine showed up, and he's like, let me tell you about the history of Dog Welder. But I love Dog Welder. You know what, Rod? Like, I can't necessarily do it live, but someday we need to hop on like a Discord call and let me pitch you my Dog Welder series. Two characters I'd absolutely love to write are Grifter and Sideways. Sideways doesn't get enough love because he came out at that time when they're like, we're going to introduce 3 new heroes. And people are like, these are just Marvel ripoffs. And it's like, yeah, everyone rips off everybody. Give him a chance. And they really didn't. And I love the stuff that they did with Sideways. And I had a lot of fun with that series. And I would love to see somebody else come back to it. Grifter is such a 90s holdover, which obviously, but I don't think he gets enough play. He did have a miniseries thing pop up last year, and I think was it Matt Rosenberg was pitching a Grifter series or something like that. But I love Grifter. There's more than one. Exactly. We don't talk about the Harley Quinn comic. That's fair. That's fair. That was definitely a choice. Hey, 5 years from now, you'll get to do your dog welder, and I'll get to do my Leonard the Duck. I want to do both of those, but I want to do them with you. You know, like I want to do our version. What was the team that dog welder was on? It wasn't Dial H, was it? Like what was? I gotta wrap this up here soon. I gotta go pick up my kids, but I gotta remember what was the dog welder team that he was on. Section 8. Like I want to do a Section 8 book with you. But I would love to dish. You do Howard the Duck. I'll do dog welder, and we'll just dish on it for a couple hours. The other one that I got the chance to pitch the other day was Gold Balls. I was like, you're not going to give me anything, but let me tell you about Gold Balls. So I sat there down and talked. It wasn't a Marvel editor. It was an editor for a different company. But they were like, dream big. And I'm like, no, but I will tell you about this Gold Balls pitch. I mean, I love Sideways. He's been popping up here and there in comics, but not his own run, sadly. And he probably won't get his own run again for a while. You know, that series, like all three of those heroes who popped up, like they kind of flopped. People were not excited to see that stuff, but Section 8 also had Phlegm Gem. Yep, and the Spleen. And, you know, we don't talk about Bueno Nacho or whatever his name was. He sucked. But Dog Welder was the obvious standout from that one. I love that. Six Pack. Thank you. Six Pack. I can't forget Six Pack. God, I need to bust out my Section 8 comics. I was telling my wife, because she was like, you're going to pitch what to DC? Because she didn't, you know, she doesn't know a lot of those deep cuts. And so I'm explaining Dog Welder, and I'm busting out my Section 8 comics, and she was like, why? Why is this what you want to write? And I'm like, it's not about what I want to write necessarily. It's about what I can write, and like to show them, like, if I can make people care about Dog Welder, maybe one day I do get to write Batman. You know what I mean? Defense. Do you remember in that Section 8 run when, like, was it the Section 8 run where they had convinced Wonder Woman to join the team? Or am I confusing that with the Harley Quinn storyline? It might have been both happening at the same time. But, man, that stuff was wild. I had a blast with that. And that's the thing. Like, even if it's a comic book I don't absolutely love, I can always find something in there to enjoy. Whether it's just like a gorgeous panel piece of art, or maybe like a really good piece of dialogue. But like I said, I will never crap on a comic book whole hog and be like, this one sucks. I don't do that. As someone who works in the industry and wants to continue to work with people up there, like, I don't do that because I know how hard it is to make a comic book. It's freaking hard. It's not easy to do. It's expensive. It's time consuming. And even if you read a bad comic book, you got to know they put their heart and soul into that thing. And it was not easy. And not a lot of people get the chance to do it. And it takes a lot of guts to make a comic book and to put it out there. So just keep that in mind. Next time you're reading a book and you're like, this stinks. I could write something better. Number one, do it. Put your money where your mouth is. Go make a comic book. I was very inspired by a lot of comic books I don't like. But also, like, know that it takes a lot to make something. I'd like to see someone bring back the head from MTV. I mean, a lot of those MTV ones, man, I think like the Max, or like they tried with Aeon Flux, you know, like a lot of those random ones, but they had their moments. All right, guys, but I do have to wrap this up. I got to go pick up my kids. Thank you so much for hanging out. I'll probably go live again later on, and I'm on some podcasts tonight and tomorrow, but I will be around. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, and if you get the chance, please go and check out Hellion and Bash #2. It's live on Kickstarter. Tell a friend, tell a neighbor, tell that weird dude at your comic book shop. There you go. Hellion and Bash #2, live right there. We're almost halfway, and we got about a month left. Take care, Nightfall, Story Collector, Six Skills, Kent, Bug Boy. Thank you so much for hanging out. If you see Rod, tell him I got to give him a call. All right, guys. I'll talk to you later. My name's T.